It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're back at it, checking out the newest draft prospects for the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft being held in Green Bay this April. In this episode, we'll discuss the prospects at the center position. This isn't always the most discussed position on many fans' draft boards, but it is critical to the success of any football team at any level. Is this a position of need for the Detroit Lions this season? We'll discuss that and more next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. And welcome everybody to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski-Drew. I'm joined by Coach Andy Shields of Marine City Mirrors, and we're talking draft prospects for the 2025 NFL Draft. This is what our show is built around, folks. We're going into the end of Season 7, coasting into Season 8 in April during the draft. And Coach, I know you're excited about this. Talk about that.
Well, yeah, it is kind of the foundational piece of the Sports Peninsula podcast and what the Sports Peninsula podcast has become, and great part to you because you're the guy that drives that engine. But yeah, we do this. This is kind of the thing, and you've taken us to great places and spent a lot of time, and that's why I want to get back to these very episodes. Is a big part of it to you because it's the best way I can show my gratitude by providing this content with you, and because it's a lot of fun. And it also, this is how the Sports Peninsula podcast was built through the draft. So is our beloved Detroit Lions. And that's that's kind of the modus operandi, so to speak, these days, and how the dynasties are built. They're built from within, and you keep on layering that way. And the Lions will certainly look to do that again this year. And getting right into it, we're talking about a position that's, for us, it's manned by an all-pro caliber football player by the name of Frank Ragnow, and we have some depth behind it, and behind him that is certainly somewhat battle-tested and capable too. We've had Graham Glasgow playing his absence. We've had, there's different possibilities. Is this a position that the Detroit Lions are looking to fill early? No, not early. Not at this juncture. Do they necessarily have to fill it with a true center? No, they don't. Although there's some intriguing prospects I think the Lions could look at. We'll probably mention that, I think, in our breakdown here a little bit, Drew. It's a position group, though, that I'm not sure there's a Frank Ragnow in, or a player quite of that caliber that's going to come in there and be that first-round draft pick type center. Interior lineman, yes, potentially for sure, but maybe not at center. But I'm really looking forward to going over some prospects because we do have some future starters and early contributors and longtime NFL players that are going to be in this position group.
Yeah, you're right about that, Coach. And what was encouraging before we jump into it, Frank Ragnow, after the Washington game, not after, like the next day when they were cleaning the lockers out, he said he felt great. And it's always year to year with Frank Ragnow because we know he has a couple nagging injuries, but he said he really felt physically good. So that's encouraging. That's another reason why this probably gets tabled maybe till next season, the 26th draft.
I think so. I mean, there's a couple of prospects and we'll be mentioning here but they're not standalone centers. They are combo offensive linemen that are playing through the center position. A couple of guys I think that could fit the bill and be, backups to Frank Ragnow, or like a backup to Graham Glasgow, who's a backup to Frank Ragnow. I mean, something like that. I think that's something that we're looking at more like that this year. There's really one rough game. And there's some games I'm sure his grade was better than in others. But by and large, Frank Ragnow is not an issue. Ed Oliver got him pretty good in the Buffalo game. He struggled in that one a little bit. But he followed that up with the best center great grade the next week in the league. So, against, other prime talent. We're good to go with this center position. It is a position that one day, yes, we will have to fill. Frank Ragnow's going to be in his 8th year next year. I believe he'll be 30 years old.
Yep.
So, we've got to start thinking about it sooner rather than later. But I know we're spending a lot of time on a position the Lions are probably not going to spend a lot of time in. But, I guess that's important to talk about, because, some of these, position on the offensive line we may prioritize a little more than others.
Absolutely. Now let's take a look at the list, and we see top 20 prospects, but there's not really technically 20 center prospects. We got 14 here. Talk about them, Coach.
Yeah, well, in years past, we've done interior offensive linemen, and we would talk about, the guards and centers kind of together. We've, trying to bring you a little bit more enhanced footage by actually talking about these positions separately. And when you really take out the centers, Drew, and isolate the centers, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of them. There's a lot that really, because these players are trying to diversify, right? It's position versatility, which is something that we will talk about here. So they'll call themselves a guard. There's 2 guards out on the field at any given time, and then they can also play center. And we've had some of those type of offensive linemen. We have them now. Guys like Graham Glasgow, Jonah Jackson could play center. So, I mean, we've had guys like this in the past.
Ragnow can play guard.
Yeah, and some of these guys will too, but these right now are standalone centers. We're going to start with Mike Caddick, who was on that great Indiana Hoosiers team this past year. Maurice Smith out of Florida State, Connor Tollison out of Missouri, and Ezra Dotson Iadote from Texas Christian. Now, these are guys Oyatade, not Iadote, Oyatade. These are guys that we won't be featuring, but these are players, I think, that have earned recognition of possibly being taken on day 3. Definitely, those 4 gentlemen at the very least will be a day 3 picks, perhaps in the day 2, possibly, because Ezra Dotson Iadote can play multiple positions. But those are guys right there that are probably day 3 to UDFA range. The next 10 are kind of intriguing. And one of them is Clay Webb from Jacksonville State, Rich Rod's now former team that really had some big years in their early FBS era. Jacob Gideon from the Western Michigan University, a fine player. We'll be chatting about him here shortly. Eli Cox out of Kentucky. Zeke Coral out of North Carolina State via Notre Dame. Drew Kendall, who's a blue blood Boston College kid. Cooper Mays, who's a blue blood Tennessee kid. His dad played there. Jonah Monheim, who's going to be a fun kid to talk about in his versatility out of USC. Jared Wilson, an amazing athlete. Going to be mentioning him very, very shortly. Seth McLaughlin, really neat kid out of Ohio State via Alabama. So that's where he's played at in his career. And at the top of the SPP big board for centers for 2025 is Jake Majors out of the University of Texas.
All right, well, let's just jump into it. Talk about Jake Majors, Coach.
6'3", 315-pound senior. So he's played his fair share of football in Austin. He's been a 3-year starter. He's a state of Texas kid, 4-star. Coach Sarkisian didn't let him leave the state, and he did a great job coming in there. Started 39 consecutive games. Tells us he's somewhat durable. So he's taking a bang and he's doing pretty well. He's got 1 sack allowed as a starter in his career. We're talking, folks, towards 3,000 snaps. And you saw Texas. They played a high brand of football. He played part of his career in the Big 12 and a good part of it in the SEC. So this kid is very battle-tested, 2,800 plus snaps. And he had 1 career sack allowed. So this is an impressive set of numbers by Mr. Majors there, Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, let's talk about what you like and what you think he needs to work on.
Well, something you have to do for Steve Sarkisian is protect the passer, and that he did. He was very, very good. A lot of pass setting, very comfortable, smooth in his step to engagement and his pass set. Very, very good in that area. He's great because, he's got great technique and levers very well that way. He's got real good initial punch and hand placement. And that, comes off of some scouting bureaus via a couple of different sites and that we looked at, some scouting data that we look at. And that we can't say across the board for this position group. And if you look, he's got a lot of clips where his hands are striking inside, hands are striking inside. That's telling right there. This kid's pretty good with his hands, Drew. He exemplifies grit in the run game, too. He's not just a pass setter. That is a bit of an issue with this position group, as we'll talk about here down the road. The college football is so spread and air raid, air attack oriented that sometimes guys forget how to even, run block. That's not an issue for Jake Majors. He can identify different schemes. He's very heady. He's very coached up. He's very experienced. He understands what's in front of him. He can pick up on blitzes well and stunts. He's a very good communicator, and that is a huge thing in the NFL, having the perspective of watching how loud these visiting teams have to operate in an environment. He's got to be able to do that, and he's very good at that. Great feet and bend player. He's a guy that's athletic. Through his being a 6'3", 315-pounder, he can bend and is pretty flexible. He's tough as they can come, and he can play in any scheme. So when we're talking about that, you can gap power, you can play spread, you can move him around. He can be good in the screen game. He can be a double guy, a good double partner. He can go up to the next level and pick linebackers and be good with his angles. Jake Majors really in this draft does probably, and you're going to hear it so many times, it's so easy to do, Drew, but I might as well get the first one of the draft season. Checks a lot of boxes.
Yep, absolutely. Coaching, and he does. I mean, very impressive football player. What does he need to work on?
Well, I think, when you look at somebody like this, I mean, you have to look at the step that they have to take and what it is to play in the NFL. And, it's so really intriguing. I have this, interesting opportunity to do, game day operations for Next Gen Stats. That's kind of come up. And, we do this it's so comprehensive, our draft study and our shows and coverage, Drew. I mean, I see kids that we've talked about and you look at it and how long their depth and that kind of thing, and how some of them get there quick, the maturity of the body. What's your size? What's your size? Well, and in this position specifically, what's your size and what's your strength? And that's really telling in the center position. Frank Ragnow came into the NFL, pro strong, and I'm going to refer to that quite a bit here. And some of the things that Jake Majors could look to work on are going right there. And when he gets to get lower body strength, he's got to have a better anchor to be what he needs to be in the NFL. DJ Reader, you got to be able to block guys like this. The Snacks Harrison types, the big Chris Jones. You've got to be able to block guys like that. Yeah. And you've got to be able, our big, who's our big guy down in Vita Bay, down in. I mean, you've got to be able to get movement on guys like that, or anchor and withstand and have stalemates. That's easier said than done. And I think Jake Majors, is going to have to work at that a little bit. He's got that core body strength in his lower body to become a better anchor is his real number one thing. And you know what? Hey, I mean, he's going to be working against these pros. He's going to probably get overextended a little bit, and they're going to take his strength away for at times, which is his pass protection, his pass setting, and get him off balance and lungy a little bit. And that's when you grab and get holding penalties. Mm-hmm. Jake Majors is going to be a pro football player, and probably a pro football player for a long, long time, Drew. I am just thinking he needs a little bit of seasoning. Would he be a fit behind a Frank Ragnow? Sure, but I'm not so sure it's that urgent for us.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll be an absolute great pick for any NFL team that's in need of the next guy up. I mean, who's to say Jake Majors can't start in the league next
year? He could. He could start next year. He could start. His best years will be ahead of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. He's just got – what I like is that the hand technique, that's hard to coach, right? And that's hard to achieve, to be able to have that technique. You can work on getting stronger in your upper or lower body. That can be done. But that technique, man, that's special.
In the coaching and coaching offensive line, interior offensive line, specifically the center, and what scouts are looking for as well too, and what you're trying to get such a shortcut to the shortest point between point A and point B is that snap to engagement. That's big with center play, and he is just trigger quick like that with this. He's very, very smooth that way. That's got him among that leaderboard. If you've got that great step to engagement fluidity, you can play early in the NFL. Just going to get better days ahead. What do you think there? Where do you see Jake Majors going in this draft, Drew? Do you not as a team, but do you see 1, 2, or 3 as far as days?
likely day 2, Coach.
That's right.
Obviously, we haven't seen the combine or his pro day yet, but certainly what he has on tape right now and what he's shown, yeah, absolutely day 2. He could work his way out up into day 1, possibly. It depends on the team and the need. He's going to be a need specific player, but come day 2. There's a lot of teams that could absolutely be very interested in Jake Major. So, yeah, like him a lot, Coach. Let's talk about our next guy, Seth McLaughlin out of the Ohio State University.
Drew, take it away. Talk about our boy here.
Yeah, not a problem, Coach. You know what? We obviously being in the Big Ten, we saw a lot of them, right? So transfer from Alabama. So, usually it's the other way around, right? Joe Burrow, et cetera. But no, he transferred from Alabama to Ohio State, started in 24 games for the Crimson Tide, graduated in 2.5 years with a 4.0 GPA in finance. This is a smart guy, very smart guy, academic All-American, part of the national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes, right, 2024-25 season. He's a Georgia native. So from Buford, Georgia. And, he's 6'4", 305-pound senior coach. He's got a lot of experience, got a lot to offer to an NFL team. How about you break down what you like and what you think he needs to work on?
Well, he, like you had mentioned, Drew, I mean, he graduated from the University of Alabama in 2.5 years with a degree in finance, and he aced the degree. Sharp kid.
Yeah.
From outside Atlanta. Buford's in a suburb of Atlanta. Another guy that's played in big, raucous crowd environments in both the SEC and the Big Ten and throughout the college football playoff, not just this year, but throughout his whole career. So he's become an excellent communicator. Right there, that stance you can see, and we've had other guys. You'll see other pictures. This is in line right there. This is what they do. They will get down there and get set, because you do that, you now have to get that defense. If the center's hand is on the ball, the doggone, the dadgum defensive line better get their hands in the dirt and get ready. Okay. But I tell you what, this is a little bit of a rule of engagement here, Drew. For a guy that played opposite this center, in his playing career and has tried to coach this for quite some time. You do that, and you get down, and all of a sudden now you can get down and balance your hand on that ball and kind of get in a catcher's position to make your line calls and let the quarterback get the true play call and then communicate that. You now have that defensive line down in their stance. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 16, 17.
A little antsy, huh?
And tired.
Yeah.
And tired. So, he's very good at nuancing that. And that helps. That helps the offensive line. Those guys just don't explode out of there after a while like they do at the beginning of games. Another guy is that very fluid snap to step and engagement process. He's really, really good at that. And he's kind of another football in the phone booth type, your true blue center. 6'4", 305 is a good-sized kid, got some length to him. And he's good in tight areas. He's a good puller, which tells us he can play some other positions, as he did, when he was with the University of Alabama and through some of his time. Not so much in Columbus. He was in the center there, full on. But he's a competitive blocker, and he likes to finish his blocks. You're not going to play for Nick Saban and not be that way. You're going to be a finisher. We'll get into the specifics, and I'm going to let you do that, Drew. But, I want to lead into that with two things that I have, as of note. Here we are, the Sports Peninsula podcast. And we've got two featured games by Seth McLaughlin. And that was the 2024 Rose Bowl, Michigan versus Alabama. He was the center in that game. Mm-hmm. And the November of 2024, the game, Michigan at Ohio State, where Michigan defeated them 13-10, and provided them that loss, despite being 7-5.
Yeah.
What he saw in those games were Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham.
Yep.
2 first-round draft pick defensive linemen for the University of Michigan. Seth struggled with them. Clearly, he struggled with them. They packed up their run game, Drew. The Wolverines and Wink Martindale and Mason Graham and and Grant and all those great defensive players and all those great defensive coaches, they packed up that run game that won the national championship for Ohio State and put it right on the other side of the horseshoe. Take that to your playoff. It ain't happening today. Seth was part of that offensive line. Michigan and Alabama, in that Rose Bowl is what it is. But if you look, Jalen Milroe was running for his life in that game. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, try to a quarterback kind of draw type play, and it's to no avail, and that got stopped, and Michigan won the game. Drew, what do you see with Seth McLaughlin that might be like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Coach. So you really kind of touched on it with what you talked about, those two games, and we encourage fans to take a look back at those games. Watch what Coach is talking about. He's got to work on athleticism and pro strength. Facing guys like Mason Graham and Grant, that's they're going to be high picks. I mean, quite frankly, possibly top 10 if you're Mason Graham. And we'll certainly talk about that down the road. But that's what you got to look at. That's what he's going to be facing week in and week out. So he can get reckless with technique and lose his feet. Now that's going to get you in trouble every time, right? So again, as good as he is with the nuances and everything, I think he sometimes can lose track of that. It's just I think that's a matter of focus, and I think that can be coached up in him. From what I'm seeing, he has struggled with varied snap locations when pressured. So, again, it's more about being in the moment and focusing on his fundamentals, I think, is what it really boils down to. He's got to improve his hands in order to be a leverage winner. So again, that's hand technique. We just talked about Jake Majors really having great hand technique. That's something Seth McLaughlin needs to work on. Leverage concerns as a pro, again, if he's not focused and not fluid with his technique, Coach, I think that's where I think there's mental lapses in his game, not physical. I don't think physicality is the issue with Seth McLaughlin. It's more of a mental thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he can be coached up.
It can be coached up. Bad snaps will get you out of this position like faster than a jackrabbit on a date. And you're done. You're done. It doesn't happen in the NFL. You're done. You don't have it. He was airmailed a couple in that Rose Bowl. So, I mean, these are some of the things. He's not quite Majors. I don't see him as a Lion fit. It's just not the type of position. And honestly, we're not looking to groom somebody behind Frank Ragnow yet. Not at all. Not at all. We need some depth behind him that can support him. And that's not the type of player Seth McLaughlin is. Seth McLaughlin is an emerging center. So some team is going to take that look. Day two, probably off of his body of work. He's a hell of a kid. He's a real sharp kid, smart kid. And yes, sharp, smart kids that are tough like he is can get coached up and be great pros. But that's what he's going to take. Somebody's got to take that chance on him.
Yeah, that's how I agree with you, Coach. I think there's concerns, obviously, but again, it's coachable, and he's a coachable young man. And but the physical skills he brings to the table, day two, probably later day two, but it might even be second round. Depends on the need. But we shall see. Let's talk about our third guy, Jared Wilson out of Georgia, and this is an intriguing one.
Now, he ranks through our data, and ours is a data-based ranking system. We look at a lot of different sites, a lot of different scouting looks, and we tabulate and have a system as to how we do things, as well as our own evaluation through really YouTube and watching college football. And this is a guy, he ranks third on our list. There are many that rank him number one. And if it was all about athleticism, there is no way, shape, or form it's even close. Jared Wilson is the guy, 6'3", 310-pound junior out of the University of Georgia, Winston-Salem, North Carolina native. So he chose Georgia over his hometown Deacon Demons of Wake Forest. 4.840 for a center. 4.840, four-star recruit. He didn't just get recruited to play center, I think, initially. I think there are maybe some other things here. And the kid has 15 tackles and 2 sacks listed to his name, too, at the University of Georgia, that is, as well. He's contributed as a true freshman on both offense and defense. They had him play a little bit of both. in high school ran a 10.91 100 meter and 100-yard dash. Most places, that's the school record in most high schools. That's their school record. And that is for sure going to get you into the state track meet, the state final track meet.
Puts it in perspective.
And he's an offensive lineman doing this. It's amazing. 2021 freshman all-SEC member. There was a little bit of a gap there, though, and that's what we're going to have to get into, where he didn't play a ton and finally got to be the starting center this past year in 2024 and was all SEC. He's a two-time national champion, and he's also got 77 snaps at right guard. That's not very many. That's not very many when we're talking, the thousands upon thousands they get in their true position.
Yeah, no, you're right, Coach. But man, the athleticism that he possesses and quite frankly, the physical versatility he possesses is very intriguing. What do you like about him?
He's a great young person. I mean, he's got a great attitude. Kirby Smart really talks about it, and he learned that from Nick Saban. And really, it's in so many ways a different adaptation of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Stephen Covey, which I'm sure in your industry has read. I have in educational leadership. Those guys are kind of the Stephen Covey of college football. They kind of create these young people that are very resilient and very process oriented and get things done. And he is certainly like that. He really possesses those traits. Very great locker room guy. This is a culture kid when it comes to football. He's tremendously fluid and he moves extremely well. He's got a diverse background. He is a former linebacker. So he kind of knows how the linebacker plays, and that helps him. That's going to help him as a blocker because he's going to understand angles or should learn to adapt to angles when getting blitzed on or where linebackers are trying to get out in front of a linebacker in a pick situation. That should help him there. Should really help him there. He's unmatched speed. I mean, we are never going to probably talk about an offensive lineman in the next many years that is this fast. So I mean, it's uncommon. He's a phenomenal athlete. Very good pass protector. Very good pass protector. That's what the offensive line can work on year round is pass pro and pass protection. You can do that with one other person very, very easily. You don't need pads. I mean, it's something they can work on, and he's obviously very seasoned at it. And he's a solid run blocker with the ability to do some drive blocking, which is really, if that's the case, then I guess, the Lions will take a look because you got to be able to do that as a center and play Detroit Lions.
Yeah, no question about that, man. So much to like about Jared Wilson, Coach. And let's talk about though what you are concerned about.
Well, he's a little raw, and I think he may rely on athleticism a little too much. And your athleticism goes away real quick in the NFL. You want to ask Graham Glasgow, ask Frank Ragnow, ask Taylor Decker, ask Kevin Zeitler, ask Penny. Penny's Taylor Decker's now going to the Pro Bowl, not Penny. Penny is going to tap out with an injury. You're going to have to play hurt. You're going to have to play hurt, and you have to rely on technique when that happens. You have to rely on technique. And that's something that he's going to have to become a more technical player. That's for sure. He's got to work on the strength of his body and those kinds of things. That's kind of a given. And that's going to be something that really, that could be a given across every position group that we talk about. But when you're playing in the middle of the football, when you're the lever, when you're the fulcrum, when you are the snapping of the football and having to engage and hold the line, you have to be uncommonly strong. You have to be uncommonly strong. And that's something that he's going to have to get up on. As athletic as he is and as great of a kid as he is, he may not be the meanest prick in the world, for lack of better words. He loses a lot of hand fights and a lot of hand wars, loses the hand wars inside. And once your hands aren't inside, you clutch and grab, and that's when, the holds happen. So, that's the biggest problem there. And that he does struggle in finishing blocks, which, that's not calling them soft or anything like that. That's not the case. But you know what? When you're playing line And it's smash mouth, smash warfare, fight pressure until the whistle. There's a short area burst of intensity that you have to have the power of somebody pulling a dog sled, and the quickness, explosiveness of a Mike Tyson flurry barrage as he comes to attack you in the late 1980s. It's the same. You've got to be able to handle that. And that's what Jared Wilson will have coming to him. Probably going to need a little bit of time to sell that in. But Drew, this is another guy that could start right away. This would be another guy that could start right away. And I don't know if this is the fit behind Frank Ragnow yet. If he was more position diverse, because he's not going to play linebacker in the NFL.
No,
I would say different. But Drew, I see definitely day two, and I see a guy that could be the number one center taken. But,
yeah, I was just going to say that.
He's day two.
I definitely see him going very potentially over McLaughlin. He might go over Majors. I don't know. I guess it's going to depend on the workouts, because that's. And I expect him. That's where if he's going to be that number one center off the board, that's where he's going to get it, in my view. He's going to get it in the combine, on his pro day. He's going to show that strength, that the bench press. He's going to show it. The shuttle, he's going to show it, and that's where, let's face it, everyone's going to want a piece of that, because they feel they're going to be able to coach him up into their system, which I believe they'll be able to, because again, he's a hard worker and he is a high character guy. So he's an interesting guy, definitely. We shall see. Let's talk about our number 4 prospect, Coach Jonah Monheim out of USC.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to chat about him, because here's a guy that may fit the Lions profile, Coach. Coach Drew. You got me so into football, Drew. I kind of forgot where I was at. But anyway, this is a guy that fits a role of need. 6'5", 310-pound center out of USC, senior, California native, 3-year starter, 2-time All Pac-12er. This is their first year out of into the Big Ten. There may be a couple of offensive linemen in this league, I've heard. I'm not so sure. Well, it's a little easier to earn Pac-12 O-line, in that duration of time he got to play at USC, as opposed to jumping into here in year one. So the fact that he didn't get all Big Ten, Drew, does not concern me in the least. But Drew, talk about these snaps that this kid has taken.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So 800 snaps at the center position, which of course is a positive. But look at how spread out it is, folks. 750 plus at left tackle, 700 plus at right tackle, and another 330 at right guard. I mean, this guy, and not only does that show versatility, but Coach, that also shows he knows that playbook. He knows where everyone needs to be, and that's what you really, really need at the center position.
That photo shows it right there. Barking out a call. He's barking out a call. He's communicating something to either to the QB or through the line. He's barking out a call. And I mean, he's played substantive amount of football. He's played a very substantive amount of football. And he has played all over the place. 2-time captain as well. So this kid is intriguing, because he is your true utility offensive lineman. He's good enough to get out there and give you a little bit of everything. And he's stayed healthy. He has not been a guy that's gotten dinged up. Played a lot of football in a lot of different positions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And taking a lot of smashing. And he's logged a lot of snaps, and he has not gotten hurt. So, I mean, that goes without saying as well. Tremendous football acumen. Bright kid, really good football IQ, is what you hear and see a lot. Jonah Monheim certainly possesses that. He's to call his position versatility outstanding is probably an understatement. I mean, except for, Jonah, get a little bit of work at left guard, will you? It's the one that was thinking. I don't think he's gotten any snaps at left guard either. If you look at Pro Football Focus, which is where that's the data that we use to look at the snap counts. I don't think he did. I don't think he's gotten any left guard snaps, which is,
interesting.
That's something that Jonah doesn't do. He doesn't do left guard. Another pass pro, technician, another guy, and he's a flexible fluid mover. Have to if you're stepping and engaging as a center or kicking as a left tackle, which is one of the tough, or right tackle, which is a whole different can of worms, totally different type of blocking. Yeah. Very, very fluid in both. Drew, he is not the this kid sounds like the perfect, the perfect prospect, right? I mean, why is he not? This guy's been one of the top 3 picks taken. No, he's not. He's not going to be. Drew, what are some of those reasons he may not be?
Yeah, so, and coach, he's a very, very good football player. Not a power mover, though. So he's not pancaking a lot of guys, right? And that's really what that means. I mean, doesn't mean he's not effective, but he's also not necessarily going to be that drive blocking guy. So that's something that
stalemates.
Exactly. Most of his playing experience is at tackle, either the left or the right tackle positions, as we showed earlier with the snap counts. So that if you're looking for a prototypical center, that may be a red flag for you as a team. Not necessarily a knock on Monheim per se, but if that's what the team's looking for, they may look elsewhere instead of Jonah Monheim. He will struggle as a communicator initially, and again, because based on his college experience, he's been everywhere and had to do everything. So, and obviously the NFL gets a lot more complicated, and the physicality goes another 3 octaves higher. So it's like, wow, here we go. There may be a struggle there initially, and in recognizing different defensive schemes that maybe he hadn't seen before. He's much more adept as a pass blocker than a run blocker. So again, those are things they're going to have to vet out, and perhaps in the workouts and etc. And when watching the tape, they're going to, maybe a coach will see that he fits their scheme better, but he's not somebody that you say just, I don't care what the scheme is, this guy's going to power through whoever's in front of him. That's not the case here. Light in mass a little bit. It's considered narrow for an NFL lineman, because if you look at, you figure now a lot of tackles, coach, are like 335, 340 pounds.
Taking wide.
Yeah, exactly. Wide base, that wide low base. And that's not necessarily what we have here. But again, we like the versatility, but it may not translate 100% to the NFL. We'll see. And he can have too active, his feet can be a little too active, and he can overstep a little bit. So it can get a little bit ahead of himself. Can't do that, especially if you're on the outside. Certainly on the inside, that's gonna cause a lot of problems. But I mean, overall, we like him a lot, coach. But yeah, there's a few. He's a jack of all trades, master of none, almost, is what it looks like.
That's probably the best summary one could give, Jonah Monheim. It's also the reason why he's going to get drafted, and he's going to get drafted on day 2, I think. He is not going past the 4th round. Not when you have the compensatory picks in the 3rd and the 4th round. He's getting selected in one of those 2 rounds, I think, because he is your true utility lineman. If the Lions were to look at a Jonah Monheim, it may actually not to be a center. It'd be to maybe be a guard tackle type player with the ability to play center. I mean, Colby Sorsdahl and these types of guys, Jonah Monheim replaces those types because he can do what they do and he can snap the ball. Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a fit for the Detroit Lions. It would be. Jonah Monheim would be a fit for the Detroit Lions. Now, is his body prototype that big, wide guy no, he's not. That's something where, that's not been the Brad Holmes, Detroit Lions scouting, evaluation. They are looking for some mass. They want you to be pretty wide. Yeah. He doesn't check that box. And he is a little bit more of a pass setter than he is a run blocker. Well, we like to run the ball here in Detroit. So, there are some things there that don't make him the perfect candidate to be drafted by the Lions. But I think of the people that we've talked about so far, this is one that I think is worth mentioning because, like I said, I don't think they're going to invest in the next starter, that kind of draft capital it would take to get that person this year, nor do they want to do that. But I think they do want somebody that could give them a lot of different looks. When you get banged up, a guy like Jonah Monheim, Drew, is very, very valuable.
Yeah, no question. And certainly Lions fans know that, and I'm sure many fans of other NFL teams watching this certainly know that too. that next man up better be able to handle it. And Monheim, you got to like the versatility a lot. That's what really stands out about him. Coach, let's talk about our number 5 prospect, Cooper Mays out of Tennessee.
We'll get rolling here, as we move through here, and we'll speed things up just a touch, just so that we can make sure we honor our times that we because we get passionate about this, Drew. We could talk by centers for the next 3-4 hours, but I guess there's other people, most people's commute isn't that long, and most movies aren't of that length, so we'll speed it up here a little bit. Cooper Mays out of the University of Tennessee, 6'3", 295, so he's a little bit of a smaller frame there than we've talked about some of the other prospects. Knoxville Rays, he's a kid. He was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. Dad played football there. Kevin Mays, real good guard. I think in the Peyton Manning era of Tennessee. And his brother is Cade Mays, the starting center for the Carolina Panthers. So this kid's a kind of a football blue blood, 2-time All SEC member. He was an All-American in 2024. 2,300 plus snaps at center, allowed 4 career sacks, and they throw the football an awful lot in Tennessee. An awful lot. Was in Hooker Center for a brief period of time. Yeah,
it's a very good point. Good point, Coach. What do you like about him?
Tons of experience. He's got a lot of football experience. He's started quite a bit there, and he started along the offensive line a little bit as well too, with his brother next to his brother Cade Mays. He played right alongside him there. So he understands the stun angles and the twists and the blitzes and knows how to look at a front, and he's very good that way. College and NFL bloodlines. This kid is a born and raised football player. He's got it in his genes. Dad was a real good player. Brothers in the NFL. You're talking about, and the NFL's got a lot of guys like that in it that have those football bloodlines. Cooper Mays certainly has those. Very flexible and fluid. You got to be to play center in that offense because they are pass setting so much. So you need to be a real fluid mover. Smart and quick. He knows how to stay out in front. And he's good like in the screen game and that kind of thing. Executes his blocking angles real well. He's a natural at center. So this is a kid that's real intriguing. This is a real intriguing prospect. Very good value. We have him ranked where we have him, which is probably telling us maybe day 3 now. But Cooper Mays is a guy that could shoot up the board a little bit. Drew, what do you see as an issue?
Yeah, I mean, you made some great points on what we definitely like about him. Now, he has struggled with injuries throughout his career. So this is the first prospect we're talking about here that's had some durability issues. It's going to be looked at, obviously, no matter who you are, what position you play, if you had any injuries in your career. And Coach, I didn't see anything that necessarily scared me, but that is certainly something that's a concern if you can't stay on the field. You got to be able to play out. You have to be able to play every snap, especially on the O-line. He loses the length war a little bit. So we talked about slightly undersized at center, slightly undersized. It's slight length issue. So again, you can overcome that, but it takes a lot. It takes a hell of a lot of strength and a lot of great technique. He's not a big mover in the run game. So again, once again, we're talking about another prospect, not necessarily a run blocking. It's not their expertise per se. More of a pass protector. Needs strength and improved ability to anchor. So, I mean, Coach, I would argue, I could easily see him putting on an additional 15 to 20 pounds and being able to accomplish that. And that will probably solve some of the strength issues as well as maybe some of the, counter the length issues, so to speak. But there's a lot to like about him. But again, there are some concerns here. Kind of the first red flag, I would say, of the prospects we talked about.
Yeah, the injuries, that's not good. That's not good. When you miss time, that time is money in the NFL, and then that'll be a way to get you out of that league in a hurry. And that length war, there's only so much he can do about that. If his arms are shorter and he just doesn't play with his levery, and there are some film clips of him struggling with guys like Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, and struggling with some blocking against Ohio State. And in that playoff game. And those are the things that are going to really red flag Cooper Mays. That's that injuries right away because, he's not going to even be on certain people's boards at all.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I think he's definitely somebody that's going to be drafted. I just think there's a lot to like. And I think, injuries aside, I think a lot of it can be coached up. So he's an interesting prospect.
A3 guy, would you say, Drew?
Definitely day 3. But I think I'm thinking 5th or 6th round is what I'm thinking.
Drew,
Right.
you spent some time in the northeastern part of the country.
Right.
Did a little living there. You need to bring us our number 6 prospect. Who are we talking about here?
I'm happy to do that. Drew Kendall out of BC Boston College. I lived in Gardner, Massachusetts, coach for a couple of years, and also Winchendon, Massachusetts for a couple of years, which is like St. Clair to Marine City if you're a local to the show.
Was it around Norwell?
I'd have to look at the get the old compass out and get the map out to figure that out.
Not familiar with Norwell.
No, I am not familiar.
Didn't come across your travails when
no.
I knew you drove through that state quite a bit too.
I certainly did through Worcester and Holy Cross University. I got to see Holy Cross and WPI every day, pretty much driving. I worked in Connecticut, so yeah, interesting stuff. But yes, in Massachusetts, I'm native. Drew Kendall. He's a blue blood too. His father played there as well. Pete, correct, Coach?
Yes, Pete Kendall.
Indeed. 1,700 plus snaps at center, so a lot of experience here because Drew's a junior. He's coming out early. 2022 freshman All-American. You got to like that. And the 2024 All-ACC member and team captain. There's a lot of leadership there and a lot of pedigree there for Drew Kendall. Coach, what do you like about him?
Well, we talked about a prospect before in Mays, maybe struggling with some length. You can just look in these clips right here and look just right here, especially. And I did this because we don't do video. It's a little bit above our we need a few more technical hands that, Drew and I could go crazy with that stuff. But as of right now, we try to do these kind of things. If you can just look right there, he's got pretty long arms.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to get right into number 5, get good hand placement, and take him for a ride. And his length and hand skills will allow him to project and play on the offensive line in this league. If it's not at center, I think Drew Kendall has that opportunity to branch out and become a tackle, or even a guard. So he just possesses great length, plays with a great base too. He has the anchor. So, we were talking about some guys that need to really work on that. He's pretty good at that. He's very nuanced, sharp guy, understands blocking angles, got to be able to understand how to get out in front of a moving linebacker and be able to pick these guys on good angles as a center or a guard. That's paramount to it. As a tackle, gets the block down, or out or pass protect. Guards and centers have to be able to kind of go really in, out, and up, and it requires you to be pretty sharp when knowing how to be able to cut those angles down. He's a plus hand fighter. That's a good thing. Because we've talked about some guys that maybe aren't the great, but good hand skills. Those snaps are pretty consistent. He's very long and levery, as we've mentioned, so he's a great leverage player, and that's going to be his calling card to get into the NFL there, Drew.
It makes a lot of sense. Coach. A lot to like about Drew Kendall. But what do you think he needs to work on?
He's awful long frame for center. So are we talking about a center? Just like Jonah Monheim. Are we talking about a center? Are we talking about a tackle? He could for Drew Kendall, he wouldn't care if he's playing right tackle or center. But we're talking about centers here. So might be getting his position moved. He may not be here. This may be not long for him. He is a little stiff, and he plays, he's 6'4", 299. He's not even the tallest prospect that we're talking about. But you can see that, he's got, a real long torso. And, he can get a little bit stiff at the hinges, the knees, the hips, and bend at the waist a little bit. And that's no good. We cannot be a waist bender and play high-level football. That's just going to lead to missed blocks, whiffs, penalties, and injuries. So not good stuff. Gotta limit that and get better at that. He can lose his feet on more competitive reps, especially inside. So it's not that he's soft or something like that, Drew, but it's crazy. It is absolute warfare. A Jalen Carter, he's a reason why that team is in the Super Bowl. He's a reason they're in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
That'd be a lot of person for a guy like Drew Kendall to have to deal with as a center. Now, as a tackle, it might be different. But he's got to get stronger if he's going to play on the interior. Got to get stronger. And he's got to keep on working on his functional athleticism and his flexibility, because ultimately he's got to have those moving skills. And that will be what limits him a little bit. Drew, I see day 2 potential, but I see probably a day 3 player. Earlier day 3, he's going in 4th or 5th round. He's not going 6th or 7th. Yeah, there's just too much to like there. Yeah. Detroit Lion target, Monheim over Kendall for me.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I would a little more prototypical guard bot build.
But I mean, this guy played along Christian Mahogany. He played right next to him. So I mean, and that's going to be some tidbits. Brad Holmes and those scouts are going to bring him in and say, "What do you think of Drew Kendall?"
Absolutely. Why not?
And he's going to know. That's going to be inside information.
Oh yeah. Great point, Coach. Yeah, because I mean, Mahogany's only 1 year removed, so absolutely. Yeah, a lot to like about Drew Kendall. I think you're spot on. There is he's potentially a day 2 pick in the right situation with the staff that sees his potential and what they want schematically. I think he could easily put on some weight and not hurt himself physically in terms of his speed or quickness. But again, he's going to have to work at that. Coach, let's talk about our next guy, number 7 prospect, Zeke Corral out of NC State.
Another transfer product, came out of Notre Dame. He played 6'3", 307 for NC State in the Wolfpack, but he transferred from Notre Dame, where he played a lot. He played 3 years there. Started 40 games played at Notre Dame. He started 31 of them, and he was all ACC at NC State. Highly touted prospect as a guard coming out of high school.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Coach, what do you like about him?
Good mover. And, if you're going to play guard, you got to be able to move pretty well. He's a mobile center. He's got some mobility skills. A nasty, gritty finish. So he's kind of he's a tough kid. Position versatile, can play center or guard. Very fluid in and out of both. Very good snap placement guy. Shotgun and pistol formations. So these are some good things. Very skilled center. Drew, you can get a little careless as a run blocker, which, you can get a little bit, maybe his leverage is not maybe the best. In the run game, he can get a little high, he can get a little out of control with it. And his body type would tell you that he's not a power mover. So he's not a guy that gets a lot of natural movement. Probably struggle with the bigger, more anchory type defensive lineman. He can struggle with an advanced pass rusher too. And real advanced schemes. So, they're going to, twisting on him, stunning on him, blitzing on him, those kinds of things. He can, he's whiffed his fair share, which tells you maybe he might be a little more suited sometimes maybe at guard. He can be a little inconsistent when he climbs to the next level. He can come up empty too often. Coming up empty on the second level as a center, no good. That means the defender got where he needed to be, and that's not good. So he's a little bit short for an NFL offensive lineman and lacks a little bit of that functional length and frame. So, I mean, there's some body type issues that are going to definitely probably lead him into the day 3 area. But he's a very highly accomplished football player, Drew. He would be a guy that, I think the Lions could look at, because I think we're talking about a 6th, 7th round pick here ultimately, just because of his, so maybe his body shortcomings, no pun intended. But, just try to be mindful of us here too. And I know we got 3 more guys to talk about, but, I like Zeke Corral. But he's probably a later day 3 guy.
Yep. You're exactly right, Coach, and I agree. I think he's a guy. He's the type of player the Lions would look at. I think he's potentially could go above Kendall in the draft, but I think it depends on the team. I mean, it's apples to apples in a lot of sense, but there's a lot to like about Corral. So, but yeah, 6th, 7th round pick, definitely. He's getting drafted for sure. No doubt about that. Let's talk about our number 8 guy, Coach, out of Kentucky, Eli Cox. Excuse me.
Yeah, Eli Cox. Played for Coach Stoops here at the University of Kentucky. 6'4", 309 from Nicholasville, Kentucky. So he's a native, 4-year starter. So this is somebody that the Wildcat football program really counted on from an early time. 2-time captain. He's twice elected to the SEC Leadership Council. So this is a kid that's done a lot of community service, spearheaded a lot of those kinds of endeavors. He's actively engaged in campus leadership. programs and that kind of thing, which, that stuff's out there too in college, just like it is in high school, student government and things like that too. And that's cool. Us GDIs were looking for the place out on the student ghetto to go hang out at, or what's hopping in Knollwood. He was out organizing cool events. So good for him. Played 56 games for the Wildcats, started 47 of them, and he's been a 2-time All-SEC center. Decorated football player here, Drew.
Yeah, lot to like about Eli Cox, Coach. And I'll start out what we like about him. He's an outstanding leader, and has a team presence, and that shows in what he does off the field as well. You touched on a lot of his background. That translates to the football field too. He plays with great snap to step engagement, so he's quick. He's quick. He's quick off the snap. He's quick off the ball. That's critical, and he's got it. He's got a thick NFL type frame. He's a little bit taller than some than like Coral, who we talked about, not much, an inch, right? But it's body type's body type. He's got that thicker frame though, and that's what you like to see. He does exhibit the positional versatility, either at center or guard. That's huge, especially in the NFL. Obviously, very strong base and good anchor ability. That's the foundation. That's got to be there, and he's got it. And great at getting out in front of screens and blocking downfield. Again, gets to the second level very quickly. He's good at it. Absolutely essential to be an NFL player. Coach, what do you see that maybe are some concerns?
He's physical. He's a physical, tough kid. You don't play for Coach Stoops in Kentucky and not be a physical, tough football player. But he doesn't get a lot of movement. Again, a lot of stalemates. He's whiffed his fair share, can lose sight of his technique and get too light in his feet and lose his power. So, those are some issues that cannot happen at the NFL level. I'm not the greatest perceptor of the defensive front. We've talked about many a prospect that are much better at identifying defenses and what's coming at them. That's something that Eli Cox is going to have to obviously improve at and it's going to take some time as a developmental player. Not the most fluid and agile mover, not the most athletic guy here, but definitely a football player that's certainly getting a camp. I think he's also getting drafted. Somebody's going to value what he does bring to the table, which are some of those great, tough physical intangibles and the ability to be a good inside blocker in the run. Yeah. So Eli Cox has got a future in pro football.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you. 6th, 7th round pick, without question, will be in a camp. I'd be surprised if he didn't get drafted, though. But, yeah, we shall see. Let's talk. We got a couple of dark horses here. Coach, let's start out with our Bronco from WMU, Jacob.
These are our dark horses. And, this is a great-looking kid. He was an All-American out of Western Michigan, another Kentucky native. He played 48 games for the Broncos, and he started all 48 of them. He also has some starting offensive guard time. This is a really, really decorated kid at Western Michigan who's produced a lot of great football players. It's our alma mater. So, we're so crunched for time. We got to go quickly here, but he's prolific at Western. Absolutely prolific. There's some other great offensive linemen that played in that, played there. Tommy Newton, and there's some others that we could go into.
Oh, yeah.
This kid is as prolific as they come, and he's position versatile. He's undersized, 6'2", 295. We talked about a couple other players who are roughly that size, but he could get out levered, and that's the concern. Outside of that, and his functional athleticism, will it translate to the highest level? Jake Gideon could be one of those diamonds in the rough, Drew.
Yeah, he'll be in a camp for sure, Coach. I'm not sure he gets drafted, but he will definitely be in a camp. He might even be in Detroit's camp for all we know. Let's talk about Clay Webb, center out of Jacksonville State.
I got less than a minute, and this is a guy that I really like for the Detroit Lions. 6'3", 310, and he's got 2,300 reps at left guard. So the majority of his position is at left guard. This is a true inside-out guy. We could talk about him at guard. He transferred from Georgia. That's where he played the majority. He's played some center, at Georgia. It's kind of where he kind of broke his feet there. But he's a 2-time All-American, really guard at Jacksonville State. So, again, okay, he's moved around. He transferred. He had to get on the field at Jacksonville State. But this is an intriguing prospect, Drew.
Coach, it's a good group. It's not a huge group. We talked about 14 guys at the start. We really touched on 10 in detail, but great job, by the way. Awesome scouting on these guys. But I think there's some really good football players here. It's just there isn't that Frank Ragnow like you said. So but there's like Wilson's intriguing from Georgia. That's a guy you got to watch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some real intriguing players. And yeah, there's some guys like Jonah Monheim. I like him. Clay Webb. I like him. I like Jacob Gideon. Now, that's a kid. Sure, take a shot at it. He could be a guy that, is a practice squatter for a couple of years. And all of a sudden, here you go. You've got a guy that can compete to be the backup behind Frank Ragnow. Some of these other guys are might be a little bit more important on some depth, on some draft boards than for the Detroit Lions, because we have such a good starting center. But it's definitely somebody we've known, because Frank's got that terrible toe, and we've got to support him too, so we can get as much out of Frank Ragnow for as long as we can. So yeah, we do need to look behind him. Not so sure that we have to make it a huge priority, but it wouldn't be shocking for me to see a guy like a Clay Webb or a Jonah Monheim wind up on our roster.
Looking forward to it. Always looking forward to the draft, Coach. Great job, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so we get content every week. Don't forget, we're going to be covering every position group from now until the NFL draft in April in Green Bay. We'll also do our first round mock, which will kick off our 8th season. For Coach Andy Shield, Marine City Mariners, I'm Drew. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one, Sports Peninsula Podcast.